What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the unusual, is my lovely and loquacious special guest who will be assisting me in leisurely launching you into levity, author, counselor, TEDx speaker, master's in counseling, author of What's Really Eating You from PackYourOwnBag.com, Renee Jones. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
I really appreciate it. So everything I went over tells me that you're way too qualified to be on this show. So I'm very honored to have you.
Oh, but it's fun, Luke. It's fun.
It's all fun, yeah. And this is just for you loyal listeners. It's going to be a little bit different change of pace here. So I've been embarking on my own journey here. I'm 3 weeks into a diet. I don't even know if I really like to call it that. It's just sort of a program or, a lifestyle change is kind of what I'm embarking on. And so when I came across Renee, I thought this is going to be a great opportunity to kind of talk to you and your expertise and renew my convictions and hopefully kind of talk about some things that, maybe the people that listen to this show don't always think about, or aren't always as mindful of. Yeah. So I just really appreciate you coming on. So you said that you were kind of in for a long time, like 40 years, kind of doing the yo-yo diet thing, just like ups and downs. And then you did finally figure it out. So can you kind of take us through what that was like?
Sure. Well, my first diet was when I was 10. And don't rag on my mother. She was trying to help me. She just thought if we get it sorted out now, then that would set me up for life. If I figured out the whole lifestyle change. Problem was that she wasn't very good at it either. So it didn't work. And I learned how to do the yo-yo of, you lose the weight and then you go back to eating the way you always did, which gives you the results you always got. Right. And I did it through college and early adulthood and later adulthood up until 2012, which would have been was the year of my 50th birthday. And I thought, if I don't lose it now, I haven't got a chance, because after 50, you can't lose weight, right? So I got to work on it, and I nearly messed it up because, you start and you break it because you do it with New Year's resolution, right?
Right.
And then 1st of February, I had to start again, and 1st of March. And then in April, I actually needed a bigger size, which was mortifying. But I then hired a coach to help me, to keep me on track. And then I reached my goal weight the week before my 50th birthday.
Wow. And you said you've stayed there, right?
I'm right here.
Wow.
Okay, so right here means you can go plus or minus 3-4 pounds.
Yeah, right.
At various times, but right in the same vicinity. Wow.
So what helped with bringing that coach on to help you out?
Well, for me, there were 2 parts. One was it was accountability. I knew that every time I talked to her, I was going to have to fess up whatever I'd been doing. And second was that we worked on the stuff that was driving me to food, because I was an emotional eater. And my mantra became, face your stuff, don't stuff your face.
That's fantastic.
Because we do tend to go to food for comfort, stress relief. Guys talk about it as stress eating most of the time, and women talk about it as emotional eating, which is stress plus all the other emotions that we tend to enjoy going through. But if you're not eating to soothe yourself, how many calories would you save? Bunches.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So once I kind of worked out, okay, what's the better way for me to soothe myself rather than going to food, then it was a lot easier, because I could get that balance and stay on a nutrition plan,
right,
or that lifestyle change, and get to where I wanted to go.
Yeah. I've definitely recognized in myself, I've never been much of a snacker. It's usually more just portion control and that type of thing. But it's also just like this, the stories we tell ourselves and our family of who we are, who we think we are, and me growing up, I've always been a big kid, a big guy. And some of that's genetics, but it's also like you hear it from your grandparents all the time of just like, all right, get some more, Luke. Oh, you can eat more than that. We don't want to throw any of this out. Right.
Yeah.
And everybody always looked to me to finish it. And there was always like, at first there was some pride in that, I guess. But then after a while, it was kind of like, I don't really want to, it's never fun to be labeled as the big guy that eats everything. It's not always a fun badge to wear. And so there were times where, but it also just felt like, well, that's just who I am, because your family and everybody, just kind of tells you that.
Yeah.
And so growing up, it was just like, well, yeah, I'm just a big kid, whatever. And then you get older and it's, you kind of start looking back on things and you look at, I don't want to blame pop culture or anything, but you look at like traditionally, what are the big guys in movies and TV? They're the clown, they're the butt of the joke. And so then you start subconsciously saying like, well, I don't deserve love. I'm just here to be a goof and I'm just the big fat guy. And, even like, I rag on this all the time, but even Beauty and the Beast, you think the main story is like, even this big, scary, ugly creature can find love, but at the end, he just turns into a hot guy anyway. So even then, it's like, yeah, she loved him, but don't worry, he's hot. Don't worry, guys, he's a skinny guy. We don't have to worry about that. So, I mean, those kind of things, they play with you, and then in high school, I was always labeled the big kid. Well, I have to play offensive line, so I have to be big to be able to do this, And there was a time where I got in really good shape. It was the first like summer that I joined a lifting program, and I got in really good shape and had a great year and had fun. But then I blew my knee out at the end of the year. And so then after that, it was kind of, while I was doing my rehab for my knee, I just kind of bulked up, and instead of trying to lose weight, was trying to put weight on and get bigger. And then ended up not playing football my senior year because I hurt my knee again. So with not lifting and not working out and hurting my knee again, I really started to balloon up. And then, graduating high school, and then that first year in college, I just kept getting bigger. And that was also my senior year was the year my parents divorced as well. So there was a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And so it was like trying to eat healthy was about the furthest thing, from my mind at that time. But then there were times where in the last couple of years, I was like, well, I want to hit it hard and I want to get in the gym and I want to try something. So I was kind of on the, strict for the week, and then the weekend, you've earned it, So it was like chicken and broccoli every day for lunch, and then go to the bar and have 5 craft beers and have pork belly tacos and wings and all this stuff. And then you're just like, what is happening? Why aren't I going anywhere?
Yeah.
And it just sort of, in the last month or so, it just sort of clicked that I was like, I've tried to do this on my own so many times, and I just haven't had success. And I think it's because of a lot of things, but I found that I am also a depressed eater. So when I'm feeling depressed, I turn to eating, and it is comfort. Like you said, you're like, well, I don't want to feel down, so I'm just going to eat this whole pizza, or, and all that psychological stuff. So I just decided it was actually at a family gathering that kind of sparked this whole thing. I was going through the line to get food, and my cousin was in front of me in the buffet line, and she's always been very skinny, very pretty princess, very nice. And she's going through, and then I'm after her, and I'm just putting like a pork chop on my plate or whatever, and then my grandpa behind me is like, oh, you better take more than that, Luke. And I said to him, I was like, why don't you ever say that to Brittany? It's like, you've never said that to her in your life, and kind of laughed it off. But then that spark in my head, I was like, yeah, why do I have to be relegated to that, And so I really wanted to do something about it. And so I searched, and luckily I found a program that's been working for me so far.
Yeah.
I debated saying it, but I'm just going to give them some free advertising because I've really appreciated what they've done for me. So it's Profiled by Sanford. Sanford is a hospital we have here, and I figured why not go to the experts for it. And so I went, and it's just exactly what I always wanted. Everything is structured down to like, you wake up, you have this. At this time, you do this. Then you do this and this and this. Boom, easy. Just follow it. Check the boxes off. And I've had good success. I've lost over 20 pounds in my first 3 weeks.
Wow.
So
that's huge.
I feel very good about that. And at this point, I haven't even incorporated much exercise. It's just been the diet. Just because I didn't want to fall back on my old ways of lifting and putting on weight yet. We'll kind of see what happens. But what would you say to somebody like me? Because I feel like somebody who – there's a lot of diets people get on. I know people who've tried keto, who've tried South Beach diet or whatever, that have success right away, and they feel good, and then they fall off. So what would you say to somebody like me?
Well, here's the thing. The body needs time to adjust. And yes, you've lost 20 pounds, and that's great. Given the likelihood of what the diet is, a lot of that is water and inflammation. Because when you take out some of the foods that are inflammatory, your body sheds water, which it has been holding. It's almost like where your body's swollen. Mm. It's just a lot of water in that area, protecting that area. So if your body has been protecting parts of you, when that's less inflamed, it's going to shed the water that has been the protection. So that's a lot of it. And then you can lose for a certain period of time, but then the body needs to adjust. So it'll drop off to, 3 pounds in a week, or maybe 2 or 1 pound in a week, because over time, your body kind of has to find its balance, and about 1 to 2 pounds a week is great for your adjustment. So that will likely happen, but it's okay because it's just part of the process. And the problem is we get frustrated. Well, I was losing like 7 pounds a week at first. Mm-hmm. It's a long game. It's not a sprint. Right. And once it settles, then you just keep doing what you're doing. And it's like the tortoise and the hare, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Slow and steady still wins. It just may take longer than you thought in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you have? Because it was kind of interesting that this whole thing sparked at a family gathering, and there can be a lot of pressures when you're around family and eating. And I've already had a couple since I've started, but like just this last weekend, we had a family gathering and they had Qdoba catered in. So build your own burrito. And I just saw it and just turned around and walked the other way and went and sat. And luckily nobody gave me a hard time about it or anything, but that is very difficult. So do you have any tips for people out there of how to manage that?
Well, and when you were talking about your grandparents, I was thinking my grandparents had a ranch. We live in Texas, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And we would be working the cattle or the turkeys or pigs, whatever we were working that day. And my grandmother would always go and make the dinner, and it would be, you couldn't see the wood on the table. Because if you did, my grandfather would say, hey, there's a piece of table here that isn't covered. And the idea was always, boys, girls, any of us, well, you can get around that, can't you? Don't let it beat you. It's part of how they show love.
Yeah.
And, your granddad is trying to show you love and care and make sure you're taken care of. And it's kindness, but right now it's not very helpful. So often when you're talking about a family gathering or like the barbecues of the summer or whatever, what I do is I do kind of a reconnaissance round of the table and look and see what is it that I really want. If I get away from this table and I don't have this, what am I going to miss? And then I get that first, and then fill the plate with other things that are probably lower in calorie, so that I get a taste or two of the things that I really want, the things that are the memory, right? Like when we get to Thanksgiving, Christmas, there are foods that's the only time you have them.
Right.
So you want to enjoy them because it is so emotional, connected with family, connected with that particular holiday.
Yeah.
So go and look at what's there and decide and enjoy every bite. Because here's what happens, Luke, is very often we'll just eat it really fast and we don't end up tasting it, and we certainly don't enjoy it. So if we can stop and enjoy, savor that flavor rather than swallowing it whole, then we're more likely to get the benefit of it, and we don't need another helping to get the flavor that we're looking at.
Right.
Oprah told a story years ago about going to France, and she bought 2 croissants. One, because she knew she would eat it very fast, and the second one, so she could enjoy it. But if we enjoy the first bites, then sometimes we don't need any more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. And I think that I think that what I keep going back to are the 2 words that keep coming into my mind are conviction and mindfulness. And I think for me, the mindfulness comes in when, there were just so the way I've found that my anxiety shows itself is avoidance. And it's when, even I'm a little bit younger than you, Renee, but when I was in high school, we could check what our grades were online, could log in and check. And when I was not doing well in a class, I never wanted to look at that grade. I never wanted to know just how bad I was doing, And when money's been tight in my life, I do not want to look at my checking account, But the only way you can really help it is to know exactly what's going on and how bad it is, So with food, it was the same way. It was like, I don't want to look at a scale. I don't want to know how much I am, and I don't want to think about what's going into my body, it's just, I just want to have it. And so I really now it's just, I'm trying to be mindful about everything. In this case, food related, but I just think about all the times where, I was just talking to my friend, and he actually just lost 130 pounds last year, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And he had kind of a different journey where he used to be very small when he was younger. He has ADHD, and the type of medication he was on was actually killing him.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't sleep at all, but then he could eat whatever he wanted. It didn't matter. And so when they changed his medication, he didn't change his habits because he wasn't expecting it, and really got up and for years was struggling with it. And he finally just really bit the bullet and did it. And I'm so proud of him. Yeah. Part of the inspiration why I wanted to do this. And I think for me, it's just that mindfulness of especially on the weekends, I never ever thought about what I was eating. It's like, well, this is the weekend. It's time for me to just relax. I don't have any schedules. I don't have anything to do. I can sleep in. I can go, I'll go try this new restaurant. I just never thought of it. And then also the mindfulness, and then having the conviction for when you do have a family get together, or you see your favorite foods, and the conviction to like you said, just take that first bite and really enjoy it.
Because it's not so much the food, Luke. It's the memory. It's the experience. It's watching your grandmother bake whatever. It's those things that so charge flour and sugar and butter
Hmm.
that we mix together in some way, shape, matter, or form.
Right.
And you're right, it is, be aware of what you're doing. Because, I'm only 5'3", Luke.
Hmm.
I'm a tiny little woman. This body can only burn so many calories per day, no matter how much I work out, right? And you have to be aware of that. It's almost like a financial budget.
Hmm.
You don't overspend much. And if you do, you don't like paying the charges on that,
Yeah.
right? But you stay within your budget generally. And if you go over, credit card companies will get you.
Yeah.
And we think it ought to be different with food, but it's not. And okay, I'm going to talk to you about that scale now.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This may be more girls than guys, but that scale has nothing to do with your value. That scale is just math. And it's how much food did I eat? How many calories did I burn? And where's the balance in between? And this is the method that I see what has happened. But your value is never on the table. The scale is just a measuring stick to see where we are. And if you approach the scale going, oh gosh, I'm going to be so mad at myself, or wow, I'm such a loser, but not on the scale, then that's not really a good relationship. That's not a good way to approach it. It's not good for you. But if you look at it as, okay, what's my progress? Okay, that's in the wrong direction. We need to go back the other way.
Yeah, it's that, I think of like with the scale, and then, Eckhart Tolle calls those our pain bodies.
Yeah.
But also like even at a family gathering, when you're thinking of, like when I walked in and I saw that build your own burrito buffet, I wasn't necessarily, I was like, I smelled the queso and I wanted that, but it was also like, I didn't want to feel the pressure, the eyes and the judgment on me either,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also, I think it's the resistance to those things that give them their power. So if you are afraid of a scale, or you are like, oh, I'm panicking, it's just the way you handle it. Like you said, it's just a measuring stick, or it's just food that they brought. You don't have to eat it. Nobody's forcing you to do it, and it's sort of that when you bring that fear and that resistance to it, that's what makes it this big monolith, to you. I keep thinking of Craig Ferguson. Craig Ferguson. He was
I know, Craig.
Yeah. So when Lindsay Lohan was going through her very public thing, and he started talking about his sobriety, and he was kind of chastising America, just saying, this isn't your entertainment, But when he was talking about his own sobriety, he was saying, I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a thinking problem, And I just keep thinking about that with food. It's like I have a thinking problem of how I think about food, and mainly how I'm not thinking about the food,
Yeah. Well, and in terms of not paying attention to it, not being mindful, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thinking problem is thinking food will soothe you and comfort you.
Mm-hmm.
And, that actually comes from birth.
Mm-hmm.
Because when a baby cries, what do we do?
Get the bottle.
Get the bottle, the breast, a pacifier, something. In fact, I even have this. I used this when I was losing my weight. I taped this just at my height on the refrigerator, because if I was going to the refrigerator and it wasn't mealtime, this is what I wanted. Mm. And it was just a reminder of, okay, you're looking for comfort and soothing. Where else can we get it?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Good.
It is. And, it's weird when you think about like all the events and the reasons we have to get together normally based around food.
I told you earlier that I lived in Wales for a while, and I was
Mm-hmm.
coordinating activities at a center, and I had planned this whole thing, and the staff said, we can't do that. And I said, why not? I said, there's no food. Like, well, we can get together without food. No, we can't. I said, okay, you can have your cup of tea and coffee and your biscuit. That's fine, but we don't need a meal. No. We've got to have a reason to get together.
Wow.
And that is what we do. We think if we get together, there must be food or drink of some sort.
Yeah.
We can't just get together and get happy just because it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. No, we have to get happy with food and beverage with us.
Right. Yeah. So what do you think, because the more time that passes, the more I think that, I don't know, I'd love to get your take on this, but why do you think that, certain diets don't always work for everyone?
When I work with my clients, I have a 3-pronged approach. Your body, your baggage, your best.
Mm.
So if we work on what works for your body, then it will work better. And we all have different things that feed us. Well, I lost my weight on a low-fat, low-calorie, no-flavor diet, but I was tired, hungry, and cranky all the time. And then I did a metabolic test, and they said, oh, no, you need more fat in your diet. I was like, fat? Are you crazy? I mean, it was kind of lowish carb, but it had cheese sauce and bacon in it. And I was like, oh, but it still had some carbs. And I had been on low fat for so many years that it was like heavenly. And I was already at my goal weight, and I lost 2 pounds that week.
Wow.
And I was not hungry, and I was not cranky, and I wasn't tired. My husband was so very grateful. So, but if we have to find what works for you, and here's the thing, all diets work as long as you do them. But when we aren't getting what we need and we're hungry, we tend to, go find anything. That's just our unconscious mind trying to keep our body alive and healthy.
Yeah.
So finding the combination of foods that gives you more satisfaction for the same number of calories is going to be far and away more effective for you than any other will be. Now, it doesn't work the same for everybody. Some men can't eat as much meat as I can. Right? Some women really could not do the butter and cheese sauces that I do. That doesn't agree with them. So you have to find the thing that actually works for you. And, there are some people who suggest you do a phasing thing where you do one for a month and another for a month and another for a month. Keep your body guessing. As long as you're satisfied and losing the weight you want to lose, you'll be fine.
I've been watching a lot of Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. And I love the UK version, actually much better than the US one. But I had this epiphany the other day, which maybe other people have thought of this, but it just kind of came to me where, you think like, he comes in and he's so passionate and he's trying to teach these people how to run their kitchen properly. And he's, usually we're not going to be using the microwave. We're not going to be reheating stuff. We're going to get fresh local ingredients. We're going to cook to order, and then getting them all brand new kitchen equipment and training the staff on how to do it. And he's this great chef. So, you think it's going to work. And you start doing some research because you start to think how many of these are really that successful. And honestly, it's about the same percentage as if you would go open your restaurant on your own. It's about 20 to 30% success rate. And it's interesting to think that it's sort of like, I just sort of had this epiphany, like, well, what's the difference, between Gordon Ramsay, who can start from scratch and open any chef. And then the answer came to me. I was like, well, it's Gordon Ramsay because he's that type of person. He's special, and he's the type of person who is going to work hard and he's going to be successful, and he is passionate about it. So he's going to put his all into it. And if you go to these people, you can give them the best ingredients. You can teach them the best ways to do it. You can give them all brand new equipment. You can give them the best diets to eat, the best foods, the best workout plan, but I think that it comes down to, if you're not committed and if you're not in the right frame of mind and, willing to go all the way, I just don't think it's going to work.
The thing that makes the difference, the only secret to weight loss, the magic bullet the power of your intention. If you want it, and we'll do whatever it takes to get there in a healthy way, right? It's got to be in a healthy way. Then you'll make it. It just depends on how committed you are, both to following it and finding what works for you. And, there are a lot of things that detract from that. The emotional baggage will detract from that all day long. Self-esteem will detract from that all day long. Knowing how to handle family dynamics will detract from that all day long. So the more of those elements you can manage, handle, resolve, the more likely you are to actually succeed and stay successful.
So is that your number one secret to all weight loss?
Okay, so the thing that makes weight loss work is learning what works for you and continuing to do it in a modified form once you get to your goal weight, because it's a calorie deficit that does it. So the reason so many gain their weight back is because they go back to eating the way they always did. It's like, oh, I made it. Yay, go. Now I get to eat whatever I want.
Right.
Well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That gets you back where you were.
Yeah.
In all those unhealthy glories, which is not good.
Yeah. And that's my goal right now, is to actually be smaller than I've ever been as an adult. So I'm not going back to some place I used to be. It's new territory. And I'm ready to change the way I go about my life, and I know it's sort of like with everything. Like if I have any goal in life, it's really, my main one is to just be a good man, but really just be a good person, and I never think of that as a destination. I always think of it as you're always trying to be that, and so I'm just incorporating this into that of like, I want to think of it as like, this isn't something that I'm just going to do for a year and then be like, cool, we did it. Now back to wings and beer every day, which would be great if I could. But
you could probably do the wings and beer once a week.
Once a week, yeah. Someday we'll get back to that.
But this is the thing. It's got to be managed. And we manage what we monitor.
Yeah.
So if you just keep an eye on it, just like you do your budget, just like you do relationships, just like you do your job, you keep an eye on it, you'll be successful in the end because you don't let it get out of hand. I have a 3-pound alarm that goes off in my head. If I'm suddenly up 3 pounds, it's like, okay, something's off. We need to make the adjustment, get back to where we were.
Yeah.
That's how you manage it.
Yeah. I think we all wish that it was more just like we were in a Rocky movie and we could just have a 2-minute montage of doing pull-ups and punching frozen beefs, and then we're in the best shape of our life.
Yeah, I have an exercise routine at the moment. It takes me 10 minutes and I love it because it's only 10 minutes and I'm done.
That's great.
And that's on top of the walk I do with the dog, but that's fun.
Wow, overtime. Well, Renee, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Where can people buy your book, What's Really Eating You? That's on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon in English and as of today in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And where can the people find you? Packyourownbag.com?
Packyourownbag.com. I have, one-to-one. I have group things. I have video courses.
Right.
Awesome. We can figure it
out. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. And loyal listeners, you can find me on Twitter at LukeLarson89. Find this podcast at L Squared Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Facebook at L2 Podcast. Check us out. Check Renee out. I'm so excited to bring your book, and I'm excited to see where my journey takes me. Thank you so much.